spark of magic in.
They hit the charts together. They smiled for the cameras together. They swore they were brothers and sisters for life. But behind the glittering lights of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, some of the smoothest voices in R&B were hiding the ugliest secrets.
Someone to call mine, but Mama said you can't hear it.
Stolen royalties, midnight betrayals, legal wars that tore apart legacies that took decades to build. Tonight, we are pulling back the velvet curtain on 10 legendary R&B groups that didn't just fall apart, they turned on each other. Stay with us, because what happened to number one will leave you absolutely speechless. Number 10, The Impressions, Curtis Mayfield versus Jerry Butler. We begin at number 10 with one of the most quietly devastating ruptures in the history of Chicago soul. The Impressions and the slow-burning war between two of the most gifted men to ever share a stage, Curtis Mayfield and Jerry Butler. On the surface, they looked like the perfect partnership. Butler had the voice deep, smooth, and authoritative beyond his years. Mayfield had the vision, a pen that could capture joy, pain, awe, and the entire Black American experience in a single verse. Together they seemed unstoppable, but underneath that harmony, a tension was building that neither man fully acknowledged in public. When the Impressions first came together in the late 50s, it was Jerry Butler who was positioned as the frontman. His baritone commanded rooms. His presence anchored the group's early identity. But it was Curtis Mayfield doing the heavy lifting in the background, writing the material, coaching the arrangements, and quietly becoming the heartbeat of everything the group was building. When Butler left in 1960 to pursue a solo career, the official story was that it was simply time for him to spread his wings. But those close to the situation understood the real tension. Butler felt constrained. Mayfield felt overlooked, and the separation, rather than ending the friction, actually deepened it in ways neither man fully admitted. Because here is the part that cuts the deepest. After Butler left, Mayfield did not just keep the Impressions alive, he helped rescue Butler's solo career too. He wrote for him, he produced for him. He gave the very man who walked away some of the strongest material of his career. Curtis Mayfield was holding up two houses while getting credit for barely one. The public saw two legends who went their separate ways. The insiders saw a gifted man who was generous to a fault and who carried the weight of a partnership that only truly served one of them. Mayfield deserved everything. He settled for gratitude. And in this industry, gratitude does not pay royalties. Number 9, the OJs, the members who never made it to the throne.
This heart of mine would be grieving.
At number 9, we turn to the OJs, one of the crown jewels of Philadelphia soul.
Don't go. Stay.
A group whose music preached unity, loyalty, and brotherhood to the world, while quietly telling a very different story behind the scenes.
We were made for it.
Most people know the OJs as the trio that dominated the 1970s, with hits like Backstabbers, Love Train, and For the Love of Money. What most people do not know is that the group they fell in love with was built on a foundation that included men who never got to stand in the spotlight when it mattered most. The OJs began as a 5-piece group in the early 60s. Over the years, members came and went, and the lineup was trimmed and reshaped more than once.
Ooh, baby girl.
But the departure that stings the most, the one that history has largely allowed to fade into the background, is the story of Bobby Massey.
I need what you need what I need.
And Massey was an original member. He sang on the early records. He was part of the grind, the years of small gigs, regional recognition, and near misses that preceded the group's eventual breakthrough.
Oh, girl.
He helped build the identity that Gamble and Huff would later transform into a worldwide phenomenon. But Massey was phased out right on the edge of everything.
For each other.
He left the group in 1972, the very moment the OJs were stepping into the era that would define their legacy, the Backstabbers album.
Oh, baby.
The Philly International deal, the string arrangements, the suits, the television appearances, the sold-out shows. All of it came after Massey was gone. And then there was William Powell, who stayed, who sang through the peak years, but who was battling a cancer diagnosis while the tour buses kept rolling.
Loves to, but I ain't never had nobody.
The group's commercial obligations did not pause for his suffering.
You are that someone.
The machine demanded shows, and so shows were delivered, even as one of its members was quietly losing a fight for his life. And Powell died in 1977.
I've been hoping, I've been looking for.
Massey never saw a dime of the dynasty his early work helped make possible. They preached love and loyalty from the stage. The men they left behind heard something else entirely.
All my days.
Quick question, are you subscribed? If not, you're part of the 99% who watch and disappear. Here's the problem, YouTube won't show you our next video unless you subscribe. So if you want more untold music stories like this, hit that button right now, 2 seconds, do it before you forget.
You like what I like.
Number 8, The Platters. Tony Williams and the name that was stolen in plain sight. Number 8 brings us to one of the most openly documented and yet still somehow underreported cases of betrayal in the entire history of rhythm and blues. The Platters. And the slow-motion theft of the one thing Tony Williams could not put a price on. His name. The Platters in their prime were untouchable. When Tony Williams opened his mouth and let that soaring, awaking tenor loose on Only You or The Great Pretender, something happened to audiences that went beyond entertainment.
My dream come true.
It was recognition. It was longing. It was the feeling that someone had reached inside your chest and named something you had never been able to name yourself.
And to fill my heart.
That was Tony Williams. That was the Platters. But the music industry in the 50s and 60s was a minefield for black artists, and the Platters were no exception. Their manager, Buck Ram, held enormous control over the group's business affairs. Contracts were signed under conditions that gave Ram and the label leverage that the artists themselves did not fully understand at the time. When Williams departed in 1961, he believed he was leaving the group, not surrendering his identity. But that is not how it played out. Almost immediately, Buck Ram began assembling new lineups to tour and record under the Platters name. Different voices, different faces. Same name on the marquee. And audiences across the country paid full ticket prices, expecting to see the voice they had grown up loving, and instead received something that sounded nothing like it. Williams took the matter to court. He fought for years to reclaim exclusive rights to the name he had made famous, and he kept losing, or at best, kept drawing to a partial standstill that changed nothing on the ground. By the 1980s, there were multiple groups touring simultaneously under the Platters brand, each one claiming legitimacy, each one confusing a public that simply wanted to believe in the music they had loved. Tony Williams died in 1992. The legal disputes outlived him. They stole his name, wore it proudly, and called it business. Number 7, the Isley Brothers. When family becomes the enemy.
All I hear.
At number 7, we examine a betrayal that carries a particular kind of pain because it did not happen between bandmates who met in a rehearsal space.
Say you love, bring somebody wants to borrow money.
It happened between people who shared blood, holidays, and a last name, the Isley Brothers.
I two-way her, she don't hit me back, something is.
And the moment a royalty dispute cracked a dynasty from the inside out. The Isley family story is one of the most remarkable in American music. O'Kelly, Rudolph,
What the hell is
and Ronald Isley started performing together as children in Cincinnati.
going on between the sheets in my home?
Baby,
They survived the early grind of the music industry, survived label exploitation, survived trends that tried to leave them behind, and came out the other side as one of the most consistently brilliant acts in R&B history.
And caught the news, then I put my hand on my head.
Shout, this old heart of mine, it's your thing. That lady, between the sheets. Decade after decade, the Isleys delivered.
How did I get into this? Should've never came home with this.
And when younger brothers Ernie and Marvin, along with brother-in-law Chris Jasper, he joined the group in the early 70s, they brought a new electricity that pushed the family's sound into entirely new territory.
But what I saw was another driver.
The combination worked. The records they made together in the mid to late 70s were peak R&B rich, layered, and deeply felt.
Preach a while, I'm in the hall, contemplate not in.
But Chris Jasper was not satisfied with his position at the table.
This grand.
Now, Mr. Biggs, before you're done.
Wait, how you know my
Jasper was a trained musician, a gifted producer, and a significant creative force in what the Isley Brothers were becoming.
name, son?
honey, wait, I was gonna tell you.
Move, this cat looks.
He believed, not without some justification, that his publishing share did not reflect his actual contribution.
Cause I thought I heard us.
He believed the elder brothers wielded a hierarchy that protected their interests at the expense of those who were doing an equal share of the creative work.
Squeaky sound. Something's going.
In 1984, Jasper, his wife, and Ernie and Marvin broke away entirely to form their own act, Isley Jasper Isley. It was not just a business decision, it was a fracture, and the timing was devastating. O'Kelly Isley died just 2 years later in 1986. With the family divided and the group's finances in chaos from IRS troubles.
Brother, very well.
No, you're mistaking me for.
Rudolph retired into the ministry. Ronald was left alone to carry the name his family had built together. Some wounds are too deep for a harmony to cover.
All I hear. And then
Number 6, the Stylistics, the architect who got left in the blueprints. Number 6 belongs to a man most casual fans of 1970s soul have never thought to ask about, and that erasure is precisely the betrayal. Tom Bell, the architect behind the Stylistics. The invisible genius who built one of the most beloved sounds in the history of romantic soul and then watched the group he constructed try to leave him behind without acknowledgement. Before Tom Bell came along, the Stylistics were a promising young group from Philadelphia with limited commercial traction. They had the voices Russell Tompkins Jr.'s breathtaking falsetto above, all but they did not yet have the sound that would make them legends. That sound came from Bell. Bell surrounded them with lush string arrangements, sophisticated chord progressions, and production choices that were years ahead of their time. He understood that Tompkins' voice was not just an instrument, it was a vessel. And his job was to build a cathedral around it. The results were extraordinary. Betcha, by golly wow, you are everything. Break up to make up, I'm stone in love with you. Album after album, Bell delivered music that made people stop what they were doing and feel something they had not expected to feel. But by 1974, the relationship was deteriorating. There were disagreements about direction. There was tension around credit and control. And when the Stylistics signed with H&L Records and stepped out of Bell's orbit, the transition was framed as the group maturing into their own creative independence. Each time. What it actually was a step off a cliff. The records they made without Tom Bell were noticeably lesser, not because the voices had changed, but because the architecture around those voices was gone. And in interviews during that period, Bell's foundational contribution was minimized or omitted entirely, and as if the group had simply found their footing on their own. Tom Bell built the house. They moved out and told people they built it themselves. History has largely corrected that record. But the years when it mattered most, the most important creative mind behind the Stylistics was treated as a footnote in his own story. Number 5, The Temptations. David Ruffin and the Night They Threw a Legend Away. We have arrived at the top 5, and we are not easing into this one. Number 5 is David Ruffin, and the story of how the Temptations, the most celebrated male vocal group in Motown history, pushed one of the most gifted singers who ever lived to the edge of destruction, and then called it a necessary business decision. David Ruffin was not a performer. He was an event. When he stepped to the microphone, something shifted in the room, a charge, a voltage, a feeling that you were witnessing something that could not be manufactured or repeated. My girl, ain't too proud to beg, I wish it would rain. These were not just hits, these were monuments. And Ruffin's voice is what made them permanent. But Ruffin was also fighting battles that the stage could not contain. Drug addiction was eating him alive through the late 60s, and as it consumed more of him, his behavior became increasingly erratic and self-destructive. He demanded solo billing on the marquee, his name above the group's. He arrived late to shows, sometimes not at all. He began traveling separately from the other Temptations, pulling up to venues in his own limousine while his brothers arrived together. The tension reached a breaking point in 1968 when Motown and the group made the decision to let him go and bring in Dennis Edwards. The official story was clean and professional. The reality was messier: a man who felt that the group owed him a loyalty they were no longer willing to give, and a group that felt they could not survive his chaos any longer. But what happened next is what turns this story from sad into something else entirely. Ruffin, enraged by his dismissal, showed up at a Temptations concert and walked on stage. Not backstage, not to the wings. Onto the stage, in front of a paying audience. He wanted to perform with the group that had fired him, armed by force if necessary. The image of that moment, a genius, unraveling in public, refusing to accept that the Brotherhood was over, is one of the most haunting in R&B history. David Ruffin died in 1991. The Temptations sang at his funeral, and the complicated, painful love between a man and the group that could not save him was buried with him. Number 4, The Four Tops, the label that tried to dismantle what could not be broken. Number 4 is a story about integrity under pressure, about 4 men who looked at everything the music industry dangled in front of them: money, solo fame, individual stardom, and said no.
Until happiness is just an illusion. And
Together, every single time, The Four Tops, and the label that spent years trying to pick them apart.
world around is crumbling down, down.
Levi Stubbs, Duke Fakir, Lawrence Payton, and Ronaldo Benson formed in Detroit in 1953 and never once changed their lineup.
Just look over your shoulder.
Not in 50 years, not under any pressure, any temptation, or any circumstance. That kind of loyalty is almost unheard of in this industry, and it did not happen by accident.
Be there to cherish and care for you.
It happened because these men made a decision, early and often, that the group was worth more than any individual opportunity. But Motown did not always see it that way.
Be there with a love that will shelter.
Through the late 60s, and as Berry Gordy's attention turned towards solo stardom and the emergence of acts like Diana Ross and eventually the Jackson 5, there was consistent internal pressure on Levi Stubbs to consider going it alone. Stubbs had a voice that Motown knew how to sell. Raw power wrapped in silk, the kind of instrument that fills arenas without a microphone stand. Gordy's instinct was to build him into a solo property. Stubbs declined, repeatedly, firmly, without drama, but without any ambiguity either.
Can tell the way you hang your head. You are
He understood that what made the Four Tops extraordinary was not any one voice, it was the specific chemistry of those 4 voices together. Remove one piece and the whole architecture collapses.
just ain't good enough.
When the group left Motown in 1972, it was in part because they were tired of fighting the label's pressure to fragment their identity.
You feel the world has blown cold.
They moved to ABC Dunhill and continued recording together, unbothered by what they had walked away from. The Four Tops never betrayed each other.
Has blown cold. And you're drifting out.
But they were surrounded for years by a machine that would have gladly dismantled them for parts. Their story is not just about loyalty, it is about 4 men who understood their own value well enough to protect it.
All on your own. And you need.
Number 3, The Supremes, What They Did to Florence Ballard. We are in the top 3 now, and the story we are about to tell is not just about betrayal inside a music group. It is about what happens when the machinery of fame decides that one woman's life is an acceptable cost for another woman's ascent. Florence Ballard and the Supremes. One of the most painful stories this channel will ever tell. Florence Ballard did not join the Supremes. She founded them. As a teenager in Detroit in the late 50s, it was Ballard who brought the original members together and gave the group its name. She was the one who recruited Diana Ross. She was there for the years of rejection, the failed auditions, the Berry Gordy meetings that went nowhere, the hunger that comes before everything in this industry. When the hits finally came in the early 1960s, Ballard was standing at the center of it. Where did our love go? Baby love, come see about me. Stop in the Name of Love. These records were not just hits, they were cultural landmarks, and Florence Ballard was a supreme, a real one, a founding one. But Berry Gordy had decided that the group's future was Diana Ross. Quietly and systematically, Ballard was repositioned less prominent in the choreography, less featured in the recordings, increasingly marginalized in the very group she had created. And Ballard, who was strong-willed and unwilling to disappear without a fight, and was labeled difficult for resisting it.
live my life alone.
By 1967, she was out. She signed a settlement agreement and surrendered her rights to the Supreme's name.
I came of a give and take.
She was 24 years old, reportedly without fully independent legal counsel representing her interests, and without any real understanding of the long-term consequences of what she was signing away.
No love, don't come easy.
Florence Ballard died on February 22, 1976.
But I keep on waiting and decide.
She was 32 years old. She died broke, on public assistance, and in Detroit, the same city where she had once been mobbed by fans who loved her. She left behind 3 children and an unpaid mortgage.
At night, or something there on.
The woman who named the Supremes, who recruited Diana Ross, who gave everything to build that legacy, died with nothing to show for it. If that is not a betrayal, then the word has no meaning.
Holding me tight, I keep waiting.
Number 2, the Jackson 5, Joe Jackson and the Price of a Dynasty. At number 2, we arrive at a story that has been told in fragments for decades, in careful interviews, in authorized biographies, in tearful award show speeches, and in the devastating music that came out of one man's need to process what had been done to him, the Jackson 5, and the father who turned a family into a product. Joe Jackson was not a villain in the comic book sense, and he was something more complicated and in some ways more troubling, a man who genuinely believed that what he was doing was building something great. While the children he was building it with were quietly breaking under the weight of his ambition. He spotted the talent early, he organized the rehearsals. He drove the family from Gary, Indiana to auditions and talent shows and recording sessions across the Midwest. And he had an eye for what the industry wanted and the ruthlessness to make sure his children delivered it. And deliver they did. By 1969, the Jackson 5 were the most exciting act Motown had ever signed. But behind the matching outfits and the synchronized footwork was a childhood that Michael Jackson would spend the rest of his life describing in ways that were hard to listen to. The discipline enforced through fear. The verbal cruelty that came when rehearsals didn't meet expectations. And the feeling, which Michael expressed in interviews across multiple decades, that he had never truly had a childhood, that the stage had consumed everything else before he was old enough to want anything back. And then there was Jermaine. When the family made the decision to leave Motown for Epic Records in 1974, Jermaine faced a choice that no son should face. His brothers on one side, his father-in-law Berry Gordy on the other. He chose Gordy, and he stayed at Motown while his brothers moved on without him. Michael never stopped loving Jermaine, but he never fully forgave him either. That silence between brothers, visible in the space between them at every subsequent reunion, said everything that public statements never would. Joe Jackson built a dynasty. Some of his children built careers, and at least one of them spent 40 years grieving the boy he never got to be. Number 1, the Funk Brothers, the greatest betrayal in the history of American music. And here we are, number 1, the top of the list, and what we are about to tell you is not just the greatest betrayal in R&B history. It is arguably the greatest betrayal in the entire history of American popular music. Full stop. You know the songs. You grew up on the songs. My Girl, Ain't No Mountain High Enough. I heard it through the grapevine. What's Going On? Reach Out, I'll Be There. Bernadette, or Signed, Sealed, Delivered. Papa Was a Rolling Stone, Stop in the Name of Love. Tracks that are not just songs, but permanent fixtures in the architecture of human emotion. Music that people were married to, buried to, born to, and healed by. Now ask yourself who played on all of those records. Every last one. The Funk Brothers. A small group of session musicians based in Detroit who worked out of a basement studio called Hitsville, USA. James Jamerson on bass. Benny Benjamin on drums. An Earl Van Dyke on keys. Robert White on guitar. Jack Ashford on percussion. These men and a handful of others who rotated in and out were the actual sound of Motown. Not the singers, not the producers, the Funk Brothers. They have played on more #1 records than Elvis Presley, the Beatles, and the Rolling Stones combined. Read that sentence again. More #1 records combined. And almost none of them received songwriting credit for any of it. Almost none of them received publishing royalties. They were brought in, paid a flat session fee sometimes as low as $10 or $12 per song, and sent home. The records they made went on to generate hundreds of millions of dollars. The men who made them got nothing. When Motown decided to relocate to Los Angeles in 1972, the label did not hold a meeting with the Funk Brothers. They did not send letters. They did not make calls. And most of these men found out that the label they had given their lives to was leaving Detroit through rumors and eventually through the radio. The radio. After a decade of making Motown what it was. James Jamerson, a man who is now widely recognized as the single most influential electric bass player in the history of recorded music. A man whose bass lines on records like What's Going On and Bernadette are studied in conservatories around the world, died in Los Angeles in 1983, and he was 47 years old. He died largely broke, struggling with alcoholism, his genius unacknowledged by the wider world, his name unknown to the millions of people who had been moved by his playing their entire lives. The 2002 documentary, Standing in the Shadows of Motown, finally brought their story to a mainstream audience. Some of the surviving Funk Brothers wept on camera, not just from emotion, but from the staggering experience of finally being seen. But for James Jamerson, for Benny Benjamin. For the ones who did not make it to 2002, the recognition came in a world they never got to live in. They were not backup musicians, they were the music. And Motown took that music, stamped other names on it, and let the men who made it disappear into history as if they had never existed. That is not just betrayal, that is erasure. And erasure, when it is done to people who deserved the world, is the ugliest word in the English language.